Good evening. Let's see here what we got. I was online this evening with a gentleman. I believe it was Chris Dorsey, and he had a lot of good ideas. But the problem was some of the ideology that I see in his statements after speaking with him is the thought process that you could disarm the U.S. military. That will never happen, ladies and gentlemen, ever. And so it's dangerous ground to walk upon. I respect his views, but at the same time, when you start speaking, doing those things, fundamentally you're missing the very basics of what is truly transpiring. One of the things that he did bring up this evening that I absolutely agreed with is the Bible. And I'll say it 1,000 times. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not religious, very spiritual. And for a lot of you people, it may be hard for you to apprehend what I speak of. But in that, the Bible, the King James 1311 Bible, is all about trust law. Okay? So this evening I was on the show with this other gentleman, and he says, "Oh, I don't have to hear their contracts. Their contracts don't mean anything." But here's the problem with this fundamental basis of analogy. He says that it doesn't matter, yet he still asks for permission from them to utilize the people's highways, freeways, byways, overpasses, and passages. Okay? You cannot say that you're single and separate and yet hold their property. It does not work like that, ladies and gentlemen. And there was a lot of the things that he mentioned that I agree with. It seems that in our discussion, some of it kind of the narrator gravitated towards utilizing armed forces. Yes, there's a need for a well-regulated militia. It's not, and yes, it's written to overthrow a corrupt government. I'm not going to dispute that. It's not open for debate. But here's the other necessity for a militia. For example, in the small community I live in, we have a militia here. It's called the Volunteer Fire Department. And God bless those men and women in this community that put their lives on the line to make sure that people in this community are well taken care of. That's a militia, folks. Just because they don't run around with guns doesn't mean they don't have them. That's a far-fetched from this community. I can assure you that. But, so when we look at the connotation of the word militia, it wasn't just to grab bayonets and run down the road and beat on the redcoats. It was to take care of your neighbor, to ensure that they got their crop harvested should, the husband fall ill and not be able to fulfill his duties to his house. But, okay, so enough about that. I just kind of wanted to express some of my concerns with the thought process there. When we are dealing with this corporation known as the United States, and make no doubt about it, ladies and gentlemen, it is a corporation, okay? This is why you do not have rights, because it was very clearly established in Mayberry versus Marbury? Madison versus Marbury. That in the event of a contract, the contract negates the Constitution, okay? So when you sign a contract with Ned across the road and you say you're going to do a said thing and you don't abide by that contract, the liability gets put back onto you for not upholding your end of the contract. Just the same, when we look at the birth certificate and why it was created, how it was created, it got brought into life and manifested because the bankers needed collateral. In order to lend, they had to have something of value. And by all rights, they'd already had the land. So what else is collateral is human chattel, which is us, we the people, okay? That's why you have health and human services. Think about that. Human Services, Health and Human Services. So we're ultimately the creditor, and they view us as the debtor because we have not been properly educated on how to work within this system. To truly exercise your rights as a man, your inalienable rights, you must give back to Caesar what is Caesar's. It's very clearly written in that Bible. Give back to God what is God's. Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's. And I believe it says, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, give unto me what is mine. Very clear. And so what that is telling you in that exact scripture there is that if one man creates and you agree to utilize his property, well, then he has dominion over that. It's like working for a guy and deciding you don't want to go to work anymore, but you live in his house. How long is that going to work before he says, get out of my house, right? He's providing shelter. He's expecting something from you. He's expecting you to come to work. So the birth certificate, it's very, very quintessential that you authenticate that birth certificate on the state and federal level in the state that you were born is where it first needs to be authenticated. And then it needs to be sent to Washington, D.C., the Secretary of State, which is otherwise known as the Foreign Affairs Chief Deputy Director, I believe. And it's recently changed hands from John Kerry, and now it's somebody else, Pompey, I believe. And so when you do that, you're going to receive that document back. Now, when you look at UCC 9, I believe it is 333, what you'll find in UCC 9 is you don't truly hold the title to anything until it's been authenticated. And once it's been authenticated, now it's as though you hold the original title. And because you hold that original title, all other presumptions and assumptions of somebody else or the state owning your property have been dissipated at that point, ladies and gentlemen. So you need to take your children's birth certificate, your offspring. I hate using the word children because it's something they manifested. You need to take your offspring's birth certificate and you need to get it authenticated at the state and the federal level. Okay? And the next thing that comes up is very important. And I know a lot of people say, oh, Derek, you're playing in the system. You're playing in the system. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not use this system the way it was designed, you will forever be a slave to that system. I can guarantee it. So, what you're going to do next is you are going to go ahead and buy your assumed name, which is on the birth certificate, in the state of Minnesota due to Rule 220. Okay? It's recognized in all 50 states. And by their statutes and codes, at the age of 18, if you did not register your name, you didn't register, then you've already committed a Class 2 misdemeanor. You are guilty of an alleged violation to their corporation the moment you walk into their courtroom, not have been doing so. You should have done that. These are things they don't teach you in school. Okay? Now, where the separation comes from the system to being treated like a man instead of an animal or a subject or a slave, where you're going to find that freedom is giving back everything that these people have given to you for the benefits. There are no benefits, folks. It's a fraud. Okay? They give you a license. They say the benefit is you get to go to and from where you want. What they didn't tell you at the age of 14 and 15 and 16 years old when you were all hyped up about this is that by signing that document, you entered into contract with a subsidiary, whatever state you're in, is a subsidiary of Washington, D.C., which is actually better known as the District of Columbia. A 10 square mile radius, which is actually only 6 miles because when George Washington figured out what these tyrants were doing, he ungifted the 4 miles, or 4 miles of land that he had granted to them, which is almost unheard of. Indian giving has never been accepted. Somehow George Washington managed to take back 4 acres because he didn't agree with what they were doing. So once you buy these assumed names, you will notice some things happening. I'm noticing things happening in my life now. I'm noticing transmission and communication through the mail has almost come to slim to none. I almost get nothing for mail. When months pass, that thing would be full almost every week, just full of all kinds of garbage. Now, it doesn't seem like much, folks, but that assumed name is what gives you an opportunity to be on the private side, which is where you want to be, because there's only two sides to this game. You're either on the private side or you're on the public commercial side, okay? And once you get that, you now have standing. You think of the assumed name out of Minnesota as a game piece for the Monopoly board. And you can't play on that Monopoly board until what? You have a piece, right? So you need to get that piece. For you people having trouble with CPS, stealing your children, extorting you, I can't stress to you enough how important it is to get the title of your property, which is your offspring, authenticated, and then purchase their assumed names. I can't tell you how important that is. That stops this nonsense, because they can no longer presume and assume that that product, which is what they consider your offspring, product, belongs to them. Because see, when you got married, you didn't get married like you think you did. You created joinder between two corporations. The Derek Chaton Gonzalez, all caps name on the birth certificate, joined with another individual, all caps name, and because they were joined together by the state now becomes a third party up above here. And what the state says is that anything that these two corporations create, the state is now a party of interest to. So what happens? We deliver children according to their terminology and lingo and language. But in all actuality, I had a mate. And my mate and I created offspring. And that offspring is her and I's. Nobody else's. Period. It's my DNA. It's her DNA. Period. Together we co-created something, and the government was never a part of it. So you need to understand, you get married before the eyes of God. Not before the state, not before a church, not before a government, before the eyes of God, ladies and gentlemen. And we have lost our way. And we enter into these contracts. The marriage license is one of the nastiest contracts you can ever get into. There are so many blind adhesion contracts that go along with the marriage license, it will blow your mind. But one of the contracts that you get into almost without any understanding at all is the driver's license. That's where they start out with your contracting. And they tell you a minor can't contract? Not really true. Because here's what happens. The minor gets a driver's license, and then the fiduciary, the parent, okay, the pay rent, is the obligor and the liability holder over the adolescent. So your minor children can contract. They've already proven that time and time again. So there are multiple angles of looking at this, and I can't stress to you enough, if you guys are talking about disarming the United States military, that's absolutely insane. That's asinine to even think that that would be plausible. I'm not saying you can't stand up. I'm not saying your voice can't be heard. But your greatest weapon is right here. It's right here, ladies and gentlemen. Because when you go up against one of the greatest forces the world has ever known, there's no way you prevail. No way. The technology is far too great for anybody to ever think that that's even plausible. Now, what you can do is educate these young men and women. You can educate the sheriff's department. You can educate the officers of the law. Because when it all boils down, at the end of the day, we're all just flesh and blood. We're all just trying to do what's right and what's best for our families. That's what really counts. Helping our neighbors, helping our friends, and succeeding. It's no secret that this country has gone to crap. Hell in a handbasket. What do? We start putting pen to paper, folks. We stop being asleep at the wheel. We start analyzing the system that's being utilized to enslave us. And we make the corrections that are needed. No violence. There's no need for violence. Heaven forbid there be any more violence. We've already got enough. 10-year-old kids being arrested in school, slammed on the ground with autism. You got people being shot in the back. We got enough of that crap. We don't need that. What we need is sensible, intelligent people that are able to convey a message, get it onto pen and paper, and be able to share with others a method and a process to freeing yourself, because you're not a 14th Amendment citizen. You can be if you want. I'm not here to dictate or tell you what's right or wrong. I'm not a 14th Amendment citizen. I am not a United States citizen, okay? If anything, I'm an Arizonian from Arizona State, not state of Arizona. Now, you might have a hard time following how I speak, but there's a reason for it. The art and deception of language is tragically beautiful. And knowing what I know now, I really, really struggle speaking to other people. I even catch myself still using the same words, even knowing the etymology and why I shouldn't use them. I still use them. Children, for example. Do you realize that how is it? A kid is offspring of a goat. So you're running around calling your offspring kids. Oh, those are my kids. Do you have goats running around the yard that you proclaim to be your offspring? Think about that. The perversion of language is what has got us here. The dumbing down of the American people and the people, quite frankly, around the world. As the Bar Association continues to run rampant, creating all these new statutes and codes that keep them in business. Because the truth be told, I would venture to say 90% of Americans don't have a criminal bone in their body. None of these courthouses in any of these counties would exist if it was based solely upon a man damaging or harming or affecting another man. They wouldn't stay in business because there aren't that many criminals out there, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be honest with you. There are not that many. You go to Chicago, yeah, horrific. 27 people shot the other day. We have to start analyzing what they're doing. First of all, they disarmed the American people in those communities. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. Because I guarantee you the people out there doing that hoodlum shit wouldn't be doing it here. I promise. I guarantee it. So start thinking about that. It's just logic. It's common sense. A quid pro quo needs to be in order. And I'm eager to lead people on the path that I'm doing. And of course, I won't do it without first doing it and knowing the results. I don't want to see anybody get sent to jail. So many of the people that I have talked to have been incarcerated for some of the things. What I've come to find after researching what they did, I found where they made fatal flaws and they committed fraud by trying to liquidate funds, by not signing things properly, not reading before they signed documents, not fully comprehending them. And they're just willy-nilly signing away. 6 months later, they're in jail. I don't know why. They didn't read the document they signed. There's one guy, and I was told this story. There was one guy who went to fill out a 3949A against the courthouse, and he turned around and he didn't read the document, and he filled it out against himself. And he couldn't figure out why the IRS was knocking on his door, wanting to go through his books, when he's like, I'm the one that got a hold of you, and you need to go. And he goes, no. The documentation says we need to come to your house. So you reported yourself. And now, since we're here, we'd like to see your books. People, you need to start using your heads. Start thinking about that stuff. This country can be mended. It can be fixed. I've put in many hours of due diligence and research, and I know for a fact that this system can be beneficial for each and every man and woman and child in this country. Absolutely it can be. If you're willing to take the time to comprehend it and learn the proper way to take care of things. Going back to the gold standard, it's a nice ideology. Will we ever get there? Who knows? Who knows? Inflation is obviously created by the Federal Reserve. I've read enough horror stories from the Federal Reserve. I'm not going to get into it, but you know, when we allowed other people to take over the North American landmass through banking, even Woodrow Wilson, you can't say it any better than he did. He single-handedly destroyed the country that he loved so much. You know, And that's the honest truth to it. So with that, I just wanted to touch base after my meeting with this other gentleman. I don't agree with all of his viewpoints, certainly. And I know that, when people first started following me, boy, I was hot under the collar. It wouldn't have taken much to set me off. And I'm glad that I got that under control. It helps you to be able to focus better, because the violence will never answer anything. The only thing violence does is create controversy and confusion, which is exactly what these tyrants need to thrive and survive. We're seeing people having a lot of success destroying mortgages, taking back their children from CPS. How are they doing it, ladies and gentlemen? They're using their heads, they're following good sound advice, and they're listening to leaders that are showing them documentation of how to utilize the system to benefit them. And I'm not there yet, but I've got a lot of great mentors, and I'm getting there. And I won't leave anybody behind that wants to come along with. I promise you that much. I will not back down. I will not leave anybody behind on that. There's talk about the UCC1. There's talk about the non-UCC. Until a system correction happens, until we start educating our children and our offspring in school properly, until we get rid of the indoctrinated bullshit of Common Core, and hell, the kids don't even know what gender they are anymore. I don't know what to even think of that. There for a while, the kids in Colorado were calling each other penguins and dolphins, so they wouldn't upset anybody who was confused about their gender. If you can't see what these people are doing to your families, I don't know what to tell you. They're ostracizing families that homeschool their offspring. And I'm telling you right now, there were a lot of people in the community that I was fortunate enough to be in as a young adolescent that were homeschooled, and they are sharp, extremely brilliant, very polite, well-mannered, dignified. Everything you would want your offspring to be. I can assure you that. So with that, I wanted to clear the air, because I was on another call earlier, and I know I have a lot of people that follow me, but I just didn't want you to think I'm all about running out there and disarming the military, because the fact of the matter is you're never going to be able to accomplish that. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. You got drones now that are about the size of a quarter flying around with 2 and 3 grams detonation charge, where they hit a fella in the forehead and it's done. I mean, you're never gonna compete against that. And they got 18-year-olds now that don't give a shit about nobody. They got rid of all your top-ranking generals that actually were constitutionalists. They got rid of those boys back in Obama's era. 8 of them, I think. Just bam, 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 as quick as they could. And now they've got younger men in there that aren't married, that don't have kids, that obey orders. I keep getting told by officers, Derek, I'm just obeying my orders. I'm just doing my job. Sometimes, when doing your job, you have to use your head. I do my job, and my job causes me to be a critical thinker. I have to think of things on the fly. Same with their profession as well. It's called discretion. Do I stand out there on the eave of this roof with ice on it? Or do I improvise, build some scaffolding, and make sure that I get to go home tonight? Same thing. They don't have to take you to jail. They don't have to take you to jail for not signing a ticket. They can just simply write on the ticket, refused. Have a nice day, see you in court. Why do they escalate it? Because it generates this. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why they escalate it. Because it looks good on their quota sheet. And for anybody to tell you they don't have a quota, they're full of crap. Because it's just business, baby. That's what it is. It's business. So, all right, guys, I'm going to tune out here, but I just wanted to clear the air on that last one. I think he's a great guy. He's got some great ideas. But one thing he mentioned was he wants to find something that will help fix the situation. Well, when it all boils down, it took over 5 generations to get where we're at now. From the legislators taking over the school system and slowly indoctrinating our kids. Getting the civics out of school, things of that nature, is a problem. And if you are going to help the future generations, the absolute first thing you need to do is get control of those young, beautiful, brilliant, developing minds and get proper knowledge in their head. You know, you go over to Korea, you go over to China, you go over to these other countries, those kids can recite their decree. They can tell you every dictator that's ever been. Hell, you go to Russia, they can break down an AK-47 with their eyes closed at 7 years old, folks. In Japan, most of them learn martial arts. Now, martial arts, yes, one, a form of self-defense, but the other thing is being connected, mind, body, and soul. Yoga, stretching. There's more to life than just being stuck in a box and writing down frivolous crap that you regurgitate. All meanwhile, it has no bearing. Knowing what I know about the law now, and contract, and trust, how come none of that's taught in high school, ladies and gentlemen? It absolutely encompasses us our entire life. Our entire life, ladies and gentlemen. But nobody is taught that. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Why aren't we going back to the fundamental basis of trade schools in our high school where they had shop class and welding and all these things? Where are they? Where's home economics? Who the hell's going to bake you a blueberry muffin in 10 years? Oh, shit. We're screwed. It's time to get back to the basics, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope logic, reason, and common sense dwells well with you. Another topic that was brought up tonight was common law. Common law is very brutal, ladies and gentlemen. Common law is you steal my horse, I catch you outside on my patio, I can shoot your ass. That's common law. Okay? And common law absolutely is the fundamental basis for maritime and admiralty law. It is. Because why? Because it all deals with contract. It all goes back to trust law. So think about that as well. It always goes back to trust law. Everything is trust. Everything is in a trust. All of your future earnings are in a trust. All your ancestors' earnings and posterity and everything that they earned in their life is all in a trust. So I like my blueberry muffins. Yeah, I like them too. I like them too, David. And Daryl, how's it going? And Steve, see you there. And Christy, hope I didn't take too much of you guys' time. But I'm fighting for a solution, ladies and gentlemen. And I've got a bunch of brilliant minds around me. All kinds of brilliant people. And from all walks of life. No idea is a stupid idea, you know. But one of the most lethal weapons that you have, ladies and gentlemen, is right here in my hand. And I can send any kid to the grocery store and get one of these. This, combined with this, is more lethal than any other weapon in the world. And here's the last thought I'll leave you with. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I think I said that correctly, did not happen if it wasn't for this. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. The most lethal weapon in the world is right here. And you can buy it for 59 cents. Inflation by next week, maybe 60. That's the most lethal weapon in the world right there, ladies and gentlemen. An old ancient pharaoh said this: "So it has been written, so it shall be done." And that is true today. That is true today. With that, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I may be back on, I may not. Yes, you're right, Daryl, everything is fiction. No questions asked. You are absolutely correct. We live in a fictional realm, and that's why I'm saying you need to get back to the private side, because the private side is reality, and the commercial side, the public side, okay, is just that, fiction. And fiction and reality do not mix. They're like oil and water. So what I'm saying is once you correct your status, they can no longer have you in their system. Now, I hope that's helping you guys out a little bit. We're helping a lot of people out. I had to swallow my pride. One of my U.S. Marine friends got all giddy and excited because I actually put a GoFundMe, PayPal type thing out there. That's because we have some big plans coming in the future. These children being ripped away from mothers and fathers, that stuff ain't happening no more. That's a bunch of horse pucky. I see good men and good women having their children ripped from them. Some ladies only get an hour every 2 weeks to see their offspring. It's egregious, it's atrocious, and it shouldn't be happening. And the more that people wake up, and the more knowledge we gain, and the better we become at making documents and creating writs, things like this, ladies and gentlemen, they don't snide at this stuff. This is not a joke to them. When you have stuff like this, you can prove your existence. You're no longer manifested. You're no longer an idea or a concept. You are the man. And here is your proof of that. Your irrefutable proof. Because all they have is presumptions and assumptions. You have to learn how to take the ball into your hands and eliminate every presumption and assumption they have. And here's how you do it. Verbally, you saw me do it in the courtroom the other day with a judge when he said, I think that you're mentally unstable, and I think that you should go to a 3-day vacay at a mental ward. Ladies and gentlemen, that guy made me an offer, and it was an offer I couldn't refuse, but on one condition, that he come with me. I don't know how many of you guys have seen that video, but that man backed up 3 paces, and you could hear the air being sucked out of the room through his butthole. I'm of sound mind. And I said, well, I'm of sound mind too. I think we got a quid pro quo here. He says, moving on. You see how that works, ladies and gentlemen? If you are silent in their realm, you acquiesce. If you don't have your literature in order, you don't have your documentation, your papers in order, you have no standing. And because you have no standing in their realm, you cannot be heard because you're a dead entity. You're dead to them. It's in their own writings, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they ask you to get a lawyer. But anyway, have a wonderful, blessed weekend. I just wanted to briefly talk about the meeting that I had with this other gent this evening. I don't disagree with him. His heart's in the right spot. Talking, taking on the U.S. military and taking weapons, that there, I wouldn't want to be around trying that. It's just not wise. It's not wise. There's an old Waylon Jennings song, I think, no one to hold them, no one to fold them. If that ever comes to terms, you might want to know where you stand. And I'm not saying that he's wrong, but where you're gonna be able to do that is by informing these people. But good luck with that, because they go through extensive training of being broke down and to be order followers. 5-star general, when everything was going on in, where were those, the embassy was attacked. Somebody help me out. I know what I'm talking, Benghazi. A 5-star general told Hillary Clinton to kiss his ass and was getting ready to send a bunch of men in there. They relieved him of duty. Who tells a 5-star general what to do? Excuse me, I believe he was a 4-star general. But just the same, he told Hillary Clinton to kiss his ass. He was sending men in to get those boys. Okay? So think about that when you start talking about taking on military and stuff like that. They follow orders. And the ones that don't follow orders, they get eliminated really quick. So with that, have a wonderful weekend. Be safe out there. If you do happen to encounter, a jackboot thug out there trying to rob you of your hard earnings when you haven't harmed anybody, please remain cool, calm, collected. If you're not well versed in law, I would advise you to be silent. If you're good at asking questions, it never hurts to ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Why'd you pull me over? Did somebody write an affidavit and give you probable cause? Am I suspected of a crime? But if you're making statements, just keep your mouth shut. If you're making statements, you're screwed. You can always ask questions. You can never make statements. You make statements on paper. That's where you make your statements. Outside of the courtroom. They're served before you go to court. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a blessed weekend.